Good evening. Being 7 p.m., I'll call to order the McHenry County Board regular meeting of January 17, 2023. Tonight, Ms. Van Hoff will lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And for tonight's invocation, we have Pastor Brian Cope of the Congregational Church of Algonquin.
Let us pray. O God, creator of all, as we come together this evening with the affairs and well-being of our county before us, we ask you to bless and inspire the board members with your wisdom and your grace. We are thankful, Lord, for all of the people in McHenry County, and we pray for their well-being. Tonight, we lift up our first responders, our law enforcement agents, firefighters, emergency responders, healthcare workers, all thankful that they are watching over us as you're watching over them. For the homeless, God, and for those oppressed by poverty, show us how best to care for them. For the decisions that come before the board tonight, please grant to the board members the strength and the wisdom to make good choices. For all of the people in McHenry County, as well as in the state of Illinois, the United States of America, guide us all into a new year of peace, prosperity, and hope. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor. Clerk, could you call the roll, please?
Althoff. Campbell.
Here.
Gadamoller. Greeno. Hendricks. Kaminsky.
Present and accounted for.
Kearns. Kunkel. Meshes.
Here.
Ness.
Here.
Reinert.
Here.
Sager.
Here.
Shorten.
Here.
Scala.
Present.
Smith.
Here.
Van Hoff.
Present.
Van Bergen.
Here.
Wegner.
Here.
17 present.
Okay, having a quorum, we'll proceed. I'll entertain a motion to adopt the agenda. Mr. Gadamoller, seconded by Ms. Wegner. All in favor say aye. Aye. Against? Motion carries. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of previous meetings. Ms. Campbell, seconded by Mr. Scala. Any discussion or changes? Seeing none, all in favor vote aye. Aye. Against? Motion carries. Move on to my comments. Good evening. I'll keep my report brief as we get to tonight's agenda. I'd like to thank the county board, county administration, and our department facilitators for our productive work session last Thursday as we update our McHenry County strategic plan. The presentations were informative and the input from the county board members was thoughtful and valuable. County administration will be consolidating the board's feedback into the plan in the coming months. I'm happy to report that the 4th annual Jake Keltner Memorial Blue Blood Drive held January 7th was a great success. The Red Cross collected 231 pints of blood in honor of our fallen sheriff's deputy. Using the Red Cross's math that each blood donation saves up to 3 lives, that's almost 700 lives saved. To date, the Memorial Blood Drive has collected more than 1,100 units of blood, almost half of it from first-time donors. So thank you to the McHenry County Sheriff's Office, the Red Cross, the Sage YMCA for once again hosting the drive, the agencies that came out in support, and of course, everyone who rolled up their sleeves to donate blood. Last night, I had the pleasure of attending the Area Business Connect Influencers Reception in Lake in the Hills. The Area Business Connect Influencers, or ABC Influencers as they like to be called, are a newly formed group of educators who will teach McHenry County students about different career opportunities, including those with local manufacturers. With the ever-increasing cost of a college education, it's important to offer our kids other viable career paths so that they can continue to live and thrive in our community after graduation. I'd also like to thank the MCEDC and the Community Foundation for McHenry County for organizing this event and supporting local manufacturers. County board members have been cordially invited to attend the open house at the new home of the McHenry County Housing Authority, which relocated from Woodstock to a new and larger facility in Crystal Lake, thanks to advanced McHenry County funding. The open house takes place from 3 to 6 p.m. Monday, January 23rd, but the Housing Authority is asking everyone to RSVP by January 20th. All of you received an invite by email, and if you didn't, please check your spam folder. A number of them sent to county email addresses have ended up there. I'd like to invite the county board and community members to attend the annual People in Need Forum, which takes place from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. Saturday, January 28th at McHenry County College. The event, which is free to the public, is a unique opportunity for people in need in the county to learn about the many resources and services available to them through government and through McHenry County's dedicated network of social service agencies. Our county government will be represented more than once among the agencies with tables, and we hope to see a healthy turnout. People can learn more about the event by visiting mchenry.edu/PIN. And finally this evening, I'd like to thank McHenry County Sheriff Rob Tatelman for standing with nearly 80 other county sheriffs in support of our constituents' constitutional rights. And to those in the audience, while there are no items on tonight's agenda in relation to the recently passed HB 5471, the topic is scheduled to be discussed at the January 31st Law and Government Committee meeting. I look forward to the conversation at that meeting. And that's all I have this evening. Do any members have comments tonight? Ms. Greeno.
Today I returned from a trip to the Middle East, where as a U.S. citizen and a passport, I have the gold lottery ticket of the world. I have more rights and freedoms than most of the citizens of those countries. And so I just want to remind this board of how precious these rights are, that we all took oaths to uphold the Constitution of the United States of America, first and foremost. And these certain inalienable rights are extremely important, and they have to be foremost on our minds.
Thank you, Ms. Greeno. Mr. Kaminsky?
Yes, thank you. One thing I take serious is our Constitution. There's many amendments. One of them starts off as the freedom of the press and freedom of speech. That's there to allow the most despicable, hateful speech you can imagine. But followed right behind that is our Second Amendment. We have a federal Constitution, and when I learned it, that trumps state. State trumps statute. Over the last week, we've had a legislators and governor signing as a statute that is going to infringe, I believe, on our constitutional Second Amendment rights. We're blessed in this county, which I believe to have the most veterans in any county in the state of Illinois without having a military base attached to it. From the very beginning, all these veterans have either given their all, come back maimed, dismembered, or injured, or will be permanently disabled for the rest of their lives. Like them and us, we did one thing common. We rose our right hand and said we will defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Right now, I think we have a little domestic problem. We need to tell the legislators downstate and the governor to rescind and veto and stop this. We have very few gun manufacturers left in this state. They supply a revenue to the state by employee tax withholding, the sale of their weapons, which generates revenue, and as well as our gun dealers throughout the county that employ citizens, that give them a wage that they can afford to live at, selling a legal product to legal citizens. There should be no reason why any of that should be taken away from us. When I talked about the vets, I know pretty much that here in McHenry, there's a large majority of them now that would be considered felons for the weapons that they legally have obtained and had the FOID card to have them. I do not believe that it's our state's business to know what property that we own. It's none of their business, it's ours. And I know that up in my district, they really do celebrate that Constitution. It's not uncommon to see on the side of their house or in their lawn a placard that says, "Our home is protected by God our Father and Smith and Wesson. Either one of you enter our home, you're going to see both of those." They take it seriously, and so do I. And I hope that we take our resolution as a county board after the long government passes through there and let the legislators downstate know we mean business, knock it off. Thank you.
Okay, this is a public meeting, and I ask that you respect and assist us in conducting an orderly meeting by refraining from applause. If you wish to address the board, you will have an opportunity to do so thank you. Ms. Wegner.
Thank you, Chair. I am glad that the chairman brought up the People in Need Forum, because that is something that has happened many, many years, and this year it's returned to in person. So I would encourage you to attend, and if anyone would like to volunteer for the event, please get a hold of me. I also would like to say that there are many people here for our discussion on the various issues on the agenda and not on the agenda tonight. And I would hope that everyone who is speaking and not speaking would be polite and courteous. I hope we can all give thoughtful consideration to those speaking. I appreciate everyone coming out with their opinions, so please be mindful this is a place for respectful discourse and discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wegner. Any other members' comments? Seeing none, we'll move on to zoning petitions. Do any members have items they'd like removed from the zoning consent agenda? Mr. Gottemoller.
10A1.
Any others? Seeing none, Mr. Gottemoller, we'll move on to, I'll entertain a motion to adopt the zoning consent agenda, less item 10A1. Ms. Meshes, seconded by Ms. Greeno. Clerk, could you open the voting, please? Okay, voting is open. Have all voted who wish?
Ms. Meshes and Ms. Van Hoff? Submit.
Okay, motion carries. Items removed, Mr. Gottemoller, 10A1. I'll entertain a motion to approve 10A1. Mr. Reinert, seconded by Mr. Smith. Discussion, Mr. Gottemoller?
Yes, I pulled this because, first off, I thought there were several people that took it off on the agenda at the committee of the whole. But second, I also wanted to go on record as that I will also be voting against this. And one of the concerns I had that I'd raised, and so some board members may not know this yet, my concern was that we may be required to pass this under the Fair Housing Act. I've spoken to Norm Vinton this morning, and that is not one of the issues. So you're free to vote your conscience and your guidelines under the zoning ordinance. I'll be voting no. Any
other discussion? Seeing none, clerk, could you open the voting, please? Or Mr. Reiner, did you?
I have a comment.
Okay. If, board members, if you could turn your lights on so I can tell that you have comments. Thank you. Push your button.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On this, I have, this kind of reminds me of a few zoning things that I've been involved with in the past. One has been group homes for the people that need special care. And it was a big, well, it was a little city of Palatine. And they needed group homes for their people because they felt that it was better to put them out into the public. And they also went into residential neighborhoods with these group homes of the developmentally needy people, you know, for lack of a better description. But in these group homes, none of them were welcomed into the communities, but until after a year or two that they lived there, they were taken, the properties were taken very good care of. The land values weren't hurt, and the rights of the neighborhoods were all adhered to. Also, many times they were maybe turned down because some of the villages and the cities were a little intimidated by the people that didn't want them. I know in the past that Little City and some of the other group homes that went in had to sue, and they never lost a case. We also had one a few years back, 6 years ago, in fact, that Board Member Smith and I had to go to a federal judge for some nuns that wanted to do a school in a church, and they were turned down because it didn't meet our zoning picture for the county. And I noticed we went there to negotiate the terms, and the judge kind of laughed at us in a very angrily way, saying, "Tempt me." The nuns had their rights. I think that these grandma and grandfathers have their rights also, so I'll be supporting it. Thank you.
Mr. Reiner, Ms. Meshes?
Thank you. The difference I see between the group homes that Member Reinhardt speaks of and this one is that, as presented in hearing, this single-family home is essentially going to be used as a residence for 4 separate entities. And the standards that need to be met to show that there has been proper care in making parking and making the residence appropriate for this facility hasn't been met in my mind. So given the fact that each of these entities is going to have to, each of these residents is going to have to act in their own best interest with providing food supplies and medical appointments and care, I don't believe that this residence meets that standard as I spoke to on the committee of the whole on January 12th.
Thank you, Ms. Meshes. Ms. Campbell?
I pretty much agree with what Member Meshes is saying. One of the issues I have with it is during the public hearing on it, I know the proposed petition talked about 4 different people who would be in the 4 different rooms, but during the hearing it was stated that if somebody wanted to have a spouse stay at that point, then it might be 5 or 6. Technically, it could be up to 8. So I do think it starts to impact the traffic in that area. The other point I might make is that the level of care that was required was not completely clear, so that you could range between people who, to Member Reinert's comment, are just people who need a little bit of extra help. I mean, my grandfather lived in a boarding home with the other gentlemen, and all they really needed was to have somebody there to help them with their meals. And he got to walk to our house. He was part of the community, and it was very important to have him there. Here, it is unclear about the range of care. We could be getting to a point where there's a lot of different people coming in and requiring care in an area that doesn't really have the space for that kind of traffic. Because it was less clear to me, I really do feel like I have to vote no based on the standards that we look at: impact on traffic, compatibility with existing use. I would challenge each and every one of us to, as we move forward as policymakers and community members, that we do need to find ways to keep our seniors in our residential communities. And we do need to be careful that when we're talking about aging, not everybody who is older is experiencing dementia or is taking lots and lots of medication and having to figure out what to do with those pills and the syringes and everything else. And so there are maybe opportunities where if we just provide a little bit of care, then they're, you know, they're part of the community and we would love to have them there. So maybe we have some options going forward that we can come up with as policymakers, both at the county level and throughout the community. But otherwise, for this particular petition, I'll be voting no. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Campbell. Mr. Kaminsky?
Likewise, if this was in a different neighborhood that had sewer, had water, bigger facility that could support the infrastructure for it. I have had to put my father in an assisted living. There's a tremendous amount of vehicles that are coming in for medical drop-off to take medical specimens. I happen to live in almost an exact same area that they do, on a septic, non-dedicated roads, and only a few feet, 600 feet from the river. When we flood, the water table, forget using your septic. You can't, it's underwater. Like I said, if this was in a different area where it had support utilities, it'd be a different story. As one board member meant, you could have 8 people in there, and the system was never designed for that, plus all the traffic. And then you're also going to have first responders, being elderly. You're going to have ambulances, which means fire trucks, ambulance, and for police cars. That's a lot of weight on roads that aren't meant to take that way. I can't go with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kaminsky. Mr. Sager?
Yeah, over a number of years of public service, I've heard a lot of arguments regarding changes of zoning or special use permits, and I think it is pretty universal that neighboring residents come forward with the not in my backyard type of argument. They're concerned about traffic, they're concerned about parking, they're concerned about additional noise, concerned about the fact that when they determined to purchase their property, that they did not, in fact, expect that that was going to be there, and so therefore they're incredibly disappointed and would not have moved there in that case. Those are all pretty foundational arguments in a zoning hearing. It's not unlikely. But the most important thing to me, the most telling thing, was not the typical not in my backyard type of approach, but it was the revelation that the petitioner did not really, in my mind, do a particular complete job and omitted a lot of pertinent relevant information, and they thereby showed a lack of proper planning and due diligence, I believe. The other thing that is very specific for me is that the petitioner did not provide a professional plan of care for potential residents, including the general level of residential care that's proposed for residents of the facility itself. I find that incredibly disturbing. I find the whole concept of just the basic care need of food disturbing, and so I just think that it shows a true lack of planning and, again, due diligence. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sager. Mr. Kunkel?
Whereas I agree with Mr. Reinert that there are perfectly acceptable locations for these type of places. Love the elderly, I am one. This particular neighborhood has no sidewalks. It's very, very close to the Fox River. There is nothing to impede anyone walking from falling into the river. There's no guardrails, no edges. This is just a uniquely not suitable neighborhood for this type of a facility.
Thank you, Mr. Kunkel. Ms. Ness?
My concern is that it sounds like it would be important to know the program embedded inside the building. This isn't just we're going to put 4 ambulatory people into a house. I don't know that that's part of the zoning purview. I'm new to PE&D, and I think it's a conversation worth having when these projects come forward to us for zoning variances, if there is to be a program or a service component, I don't know how we handle that in PE&D, but it's certainly a conversation we could have so that we could at least encourage people that are thinking about these variances to say, here's what you have to provide to your residents. So I don't know, because while I agree with Mr. Reiner, I have a group home in my neighborhood, and they're my neighbors, and we talk to each other and care for each other. There is traffic, but it's not major. I live on a very busy street, so it doesn't bother us. I've lived there for 30 years. I looked at this area. The residents in our group home could not walk this neighborhood. They couldn't be in the neighborhood. It's not practical. It wouldn't work. And so I would think if I were an owner and I were putting this program in, I would have thought about the people I'm caring for first, and then I would have thought about the residents. How do I enroll them? And I agree with Member Sager. I think there's an absence of good, clear planning around this plan. So I will also be voting no. While I support group homes in residential areas, and I do.
Thank you, Ms. Ness. Seeing no further comments, clerk, could you open the voting, please? Voting is open. Have all voted who wish? Okay, motion does not carry. We will move on to public comment. We'll move on to public comment. Due to the volume of speakers tonight, I'm going to arrange these by topic. The order that you're called may not be the order that you signed up. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to address the board. This is your opportunity to address the board. I would also ask that there be refraining from applause during comments so that we can move along rather quickly. First up will be Sally Kazanis. And at the end of your 3 minutes, the red light will come on. I'll ask you to summarize your comments if you haven't completed them.
Hi, good evening. My name is Sally Kazanis, and I live at Greenwood and Thayer Road in Wonder Lake, Illinois. And just the past few years, it has changed quite a bit. There has been a family that has moved in, the Rancho 4, the Montes. We live approximately 0.3 miles from this property. When we first moved to McHenry County 9 years ago, we attended a board meeting, and at that meeting was another similar incident with loud music and crowds of people coming and going. We are in the same dilemma for those folks back then. We all want to enjoy our property, and yet each night during the spring, summer, and fall, we cannot. We have to go inside the home, and even with the windows closed, this music is still very loud, with strobe lights and a DJ and everything else taking place there. I cannot imagine living next to Rancho 4 Diamantes with over-the-top loud music and the screaming, not to mention the strobe lights, having vehicles pulling in and out of the property. When all of us cannot have a common courtesy of neighbors, then sad to say, we do need a noise ordinance in this area because it is unincorporated, and we have called many times and talked to the neighbors, quite a few. I'm here with another member of the community that has spearheaded all of this with needing some kind of a noise ordinance in this area because we cannot enjoy the property like what we used to be able to do. And that's it. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Carl Swanson, followed by Jan Vanderspool, please. Jan, if you could come up and kind of stage over here.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to address the board tonight. I have a prepared statement. My name is Carl Swanson. I live in Algonquin in McHenry County. I am compelled to respond to the recent passing of the Protect Illinois Communities Act. Isn't it ironic that the name of the legislation does exactly the opposite. It really should be named Make Our Communities Less Safe Act. History has shown us that requiring lawful gun owners to register and provide serial numbers is the first step to confiscation. This act is a continuing creep of the loss of our constitutional rights. This is just the start. They will be coming after all of our constitutional rights, including our First Amendment rights of free speech and our right to assemble. Once we surrender one right, they are empowered, and they will come after all of our constitutional rights. Martin Luther King Jr. once said that the ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy. There is no doubt that we are in a time of challenge and controversy. Let's measure up to these times and stop all infringements of any of our constitutional rights, including the Second Amendment. I ask the county board to protect the constitutional rights of all lawful gun owners with effective legislation. One example is to make McHenry County a Second Amendment sanctuary county, such as 68 out of 102 Illinois counties have previously enacted. Additional legislation should prevent any state or federal law enforcement officers to arrest and prosecute lawful gun owners for not complying with this act. Such legislation may include deputizing all lawful gun owners, as a Virginia sheriff has proposed. We need to draw the line. I know this would be controversial. You must understand they are coming for our guns. Please be aware that thousands of lives are saved by citizens with guns compared to a small number of lives taken by mentally ill people with guns, mostly pistols, not assault rifles. I do understand the hurt of the people that have lost their loved ones in Highland Park, but such heinous acts should not be the genesis for the disarmament of lawful gun owners. Be prepared. More insane acts such as this will follow, and more anti-gun legislation will be sure to take advantage of it. We must be resolute. We must never allow any infringement to our constitutional rights. We need to act as patriots despite any party affiliations and do what our founding fathers of our Constitution would do. God bless the members of this board, and God bless America. Thank you.
Thank you. Jan Vanderspool, please. Followed by Dean Fritz.
Hi, my name is Jan Vanderspool, 8708 Bull Run Trail, Woodstock, Illinois, Bull Run Estate Subdivision. I'm here for an entirely different pace. I am here to object the permitting of ancillary dwelling units in single-family estate zoning. The handout I provided tonight is the same as the Committee of the Whole, with the addition of conditional use and variation standards that illustrate why ancillary dwelling units are not suitable for single-family estate zoning. Please recognize that I'm not attempting a tear down of what has been done. I am trying to correct the unexpected consequence of what has been done, as identified or labeled in my first interaction with the Planning, Environment, and Development Committee, PED. The purpose of the handout is to request that you, the board members, personally come to observe how the appearance of the contested ancillary dwelling unit may or may not be consistent with the division, subdivision, and concept of single family. I request that you personally consider how the additional rental units through the guise of ADUs may or may not be consistent with single-family estate use. I request that you recognize that no matter how cute granny hugging association of ADUs per AARP information, their actual impact as rental units, please recognize and acknowledge. I request that you recognize that the Cute Granny Association is a concept that has run amok. I request that you consider the formidable zoning expansion expression by right, which only really means permitted, as possibly suppressing feedback by the public on ADUs since the 2019 UDO text amendment. I request that you consider the 2014 choice by the county board making ADUs inappropriate for McHenry County certainly provides an historic avenue to reconsider ADU impact to single-family estate as open to change. All of the above is so that I may temper my point of view, to solicit your points of view, to tease my brain into thinking something else. And last but not least, thanks for the practice of my 3-minute spiel. I sure can't do much in 3 minutes or communicate much, but especially without interaction. Thanks for your help.
Thank you. Dean Fritz, followed by David Kutkowski.
Thank you. My name is Dean Fritz, and I'm here with a few of my neighbors, not all of those folks out there are my neighbors, but I have done what I consider to be above and beyond what most do, trying to resolve a repetitive noise issue with a neighbor. These efforts have been hampered by not having a clear, enforceable county noise ordinance that addresses noise from loud parties or events. This issue for us began in July of 2021. And I will email each of you with a comprehensive document describing our situation and what has transpired thus far after this meeting, so you can get a sense of how we got to this point. Based on conversations I've had with those at the county level, I'm not the only resident in McHenry County who has had similar issues over the past year. Since 2022 was an election year, it became clear to me that nothing would or could be done to address this issue until after a new board and a new sheriff were elected. And that's why I'm bringing this to your attention today. I'm asking the newly elected county board to address this issue with serious and thoughtful deliberation, and then adopting a clear, enforceable county noise ordinance that addresses loud noise from parties/events, so that in the future we all have an ordinance that can be relied upon to effectively help resolve these issues. Without an effective ordinance, there is no uniform standard of what acceptable behavior is. The county has limits on noise from building construction, so why not noise from parties/events? My contact information will be in my email, and I look forward to working with any or all of you to try to resolve this problem. Thank you.
Thank you. David Kutkowski.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Sorry, good evening. I don't know what time it is. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is David Kutkowski, and I'm the president of Internet Freedom for McHenry County. Internet Freedom for McHenry County is an advocacy organization advocating for better internet connectivity in our county. Specifically, we are advocating for high-speed, reliable, affordable internet access through a free market that is either community-owned or is owned by, a huge company. But it has to be free market. But our internet is not a free market. It's a huge monopoly. And we know this because even the county told Comcast to take a hike and built their own network because they didn't like Comcast. But better internet infrastructure is desperately needed in our county, and you have the power to change that. The county's course. Investing in high-speed, reliable, affordable internet access would benefit our economy. It would bring jobs, more stores, automated farming, which of course is better profits for them, better transportation, and more. With a new board, you can steer our county towards prosperity or towards status quo, which has an opportunity cost of leaving our county further behind in this increasingly competitive global market. And it is. In the past, we've asked the board to undertake a comprehensive broadband bill, to have the administration's report to the, I think it's called the Planning and Environmental Development Committee. I'm sorry if I got that wrong. With regular reports from Peter Austin on this issue. Now, I've been sharing testimonies from our broadband survey that we have at ifmc.co, with previous board for the last several months, and we've obtained over 1,200 responses. Some of you probably taken that survey. And so the overwhelming result of these responses is that we need high-speed internet and affordable internet access. Additionally, the survey has shown that rural and urban dislike their internet connectivity, and we want something better. And so I share with you, I guess, one testimony based on the time I have left. So Nancy S. from Cary, Illinois, Incorporated said, ATT service in Cary is super slow and times out and downloads. And here's one from Christy D. from Woodstock, Illinois, unincorporated Door Township. Only 2 options at my property, HughesNet or ATT. HughesNet was too slow and only intermittent service, plus very expensive. ATT is better, but slow because it's DSL. And it runs through our phone line and is also expensive for the slow speed. I hope that, with all the talks about prosperity and rights and everything else, that we talk about infrastructure. We actually made progress on this because the county's been working on this for 10 years. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Tara Nielsen, followed by Bob Lesser.
When safety is our highest value, we give up our basic liberties, cower in our homes, and signal allegiance to the safety cult. When safety is our highest value, governments overregulate and micromanage to the point of destroying the freedoms they were supposed to protect. In 1775, a letter from the Pennsylvania Assembly to the colonial governor, presumed to be written by Benjamin Franklin, the well-known phrase was, "Those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety." No part of the factual story of American exceptionalism occurred because Americans played it safe. Quite the opposite. The small band of Lexington Minutemen were outnumbered and outgunned by 800 of England's finest. Yet they stood their ground as the shot heard round the world began the War of Independence. In World War II, our boys dared storm the beaches of Normandy, Saipan, Iwo Jima, and many others. While facing near certain death, they took the beaches and then took back an entire continent for freedom. None of these heroes had safety as their highest value. Thank God for that. Instead of pursuing safety, they pursued virtue. We need to rediscover that pursuit for our own lives and our nation. There will no longer be a land of the free if it is not home of the brave. It is time for Americans to reignite the courageous fires of liberty. As President Ronald Reagan said after the Space Shuttle Challenger disaster, the future doesn't belong to the faint-hearted, it belongs to the brave. Americans need to stop trying to be safe. Instead, we need to rediscover being bold. Be bold against the communist ideas undermining our liberties. Be bold against criminals with evil and murderous intent. And be bold when tyranny raises its ugly head. The meekness Jesus taught is not weakness, it's power under control. It's the ability to defend the innocent against those who seek harm and evil and oppose those undermining our present liberty or eternal freedom. The question Americans need to be asking today is, are we bold, or is safety our highest value? Our forefathers' legacy and the American way of life's future depend on our answer. I request that you, our board, be bold. Stand up to the ones that tell you safety is more important than freedom. It's because of our history that we have freedom. Your constituents want a constitutional sanctuary amendment county for law-abiding citizens. We, the voters, expect our county board members to stand up and champion our constitutional guarantees. Thank you.
Bob Lesser, followed by Dennis Gavers.
Excuse me. I'm Bob Lesser. I live at 10203 Bull Valley Road, Woodstock. How do you follow that eloquent speech you just heard? The Second Amendment is very important to all of us.
And what has recently happened with this gun confiscation bill, because that's really what it is putting each and every one of you on trial. You took an oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States and of Illinois. It's my belief, as many others, and Rob Tattleman, I think, supports it, that this violates the Second Amendment. It shall not be infringed. And it does. It is infringing. And it is trying to turn us law-abiding owners of weapons into criminals and felons. If we have a 30-round magazine and we don't get rid of it or modify it to hold only 10 rounds, we'll be fined and fined for the second one. But if we are caught with 3, we automatically become a felon. Why? When we bought them, totally legal. We have FOID cards, we have concealed carry cards. We don't need another law to try to make us use our weapons safely. It's the criminals that don't use them right. Focus on the criminal element. That's where the focus needs to be. So I ask each of you to please take a stand. The U.S. Constitution is supreme. Let's uphold that law. Second Amendment sanctuary, to me, makes sense. Maybe not to each of you, but throw your emotions away. Think logically on this issue because it's a logical question. Shall we allow our country to be destroyed piece by piece? No, let's not stand for that. Thank you.
Dennis Goers, is it? Followed by Kathleen Larimer.
Good evening, Dennis Gores, McHenry County Sportsmen's Association. Thank you to the sheriff for standing up for our rights and our Second Amendment. Thank you to the gentleman and the gentlelady for standing up for saying for our rights. This has gone too far and let the governor take over everything. He is the leader of the gang, but as far as McHenry County, we need to make our voices heard and let him know what we stand for. In the sanctuary county, we brought before the board a few years ago to pass this, and you did pass it, but you only included McHenry Township. That's only 48,000 people out of 311. What about the rest of us? All the other townships want to get in this also. Just McHenry Township was the only one voted in. So please reconsider and vote this in. Thank you.
Kathleen Larimer, followed by Catherine Roche.
Hello, my name is Kathleen Larimer, and I've lived in McHenry County for most of my life. I was married here, and my husband and I raised our 5 children here. I stand here today not as a survivor and a victim of gun violence, nor as collateral damage, as my son's murderer called me. I am here speaking to you as a mother whose son was stolen by gun violence. This is my son, John. Take a good look. This is the face of gun violence. John was 26 when he joined the Navy, and a year and a half later, John was dead. John didn't die because of his military service. John died because a young man thought the best thing he could do was to walk into a crowded movie theater and kill as many people as possible. He killed 12, injured 70, 3 at least are lifelong wheelchair bound since then, and also several amputees because of the damage done by this young man with his guns. The shooter carried into the theater a shotgun, a Glock handgun, and an AR-15 rifle. I think it was a Smith & Wesson.
He also had a 100-round drum on the Smith & Wesson AR-15. John died while he was protecting his friends. The coroner's educated opinion is that John was shot twice with the AR-15. The bullets went through and exited his body, so they couldn't tell for absolutely sure. One small comfort I have is that John died very quickly and didn't lay on the floor of that theater in pain. When John entered the Navy, he took an oath to uphold the United States Constitution. You all took a similar oath to uphold the United States Constitution as well as the Constitution of the state of Illinois. This oath does not give you the right to decide which laws to follow or to ignore. Upholding the Constitution means following laws, and the failure to do so leads to anarchy. A county board does not have the authority to ignore laws by making the county a sanctuary for gun rights. I, as a citizen, cannot choose which laws to follow or ignore. Why do you think you have that right? And my question to all of you is, are you going to hold yourselves accountable for the gun violence that will happen because of your decision to not follow the law? Okay, and now I still have a green light. I'm going to go off script just a moment. I have to say, I am not against owning guns. I am not against gun owners. I am definitely not anti-gun. There is a place in our society for the Second Amendment.
Summarize your comments, please.
We have to come to some meeting of the minds. And all I hear, seems to me, is the negativity that comes out after somebody makes a stand to try and correct the gun violence.
Catherine Roche, followed by Patty Hand.
Hello, my name is Catherine Rush. I am a resident of McHenry County, a FOID card holder, a parent to 3 children, and an active volunteer with Moms Demand Action. First, I'd like us to visit the verbiage of the Second Amendment in our Constitution. A well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. The third word is absolutely key here, and that is regulated. Gun laws don't curtail freedom any more than speed limits or seat belts. You get to drive your car and have guns. When a country with less than 5% of the world's population has nearly 50% of the world's privately owned guns and makes up nearly a third of the world's mass shootings, it's time to stop saying guns make us safer. According to information published by the National Sheriff's Association, the average amount of time for a school shooting to take place is 12.5 minutes. But it takes police officers 18 minutes to respond to the first calls that come across emergency lines. Assault rifles and guns with high-capacity magazines are synonymous with mass shootings in our schools, our parades, our grocery stores, our places of work, movie theaters, and shopping malls. Now, let's take countries with the top indicators of socioeconomic success. That means income per person and the average education level. The United States ranks 9th in rates of gun deaths compared to the world among us. And these statistics exclude deaths in armed conflict and from accidents or self-harm. These numbers come from a massive database maintained by the University of Washington's Institute for Health Metrics and Evaluation. Now, let's ignore the socioeconomic success indicators, and let's also factor out casualties due to armed conflict. The US rate is worse than all but one country, Iraq. One more way to consider this data, IHME estimates it would expect a country's rate of gun violence deaths to be based solely on its socioeconomic status. So we're gonna compare it to countries like Australia, Japan, Norway, and the UK, whose gun violence is virtually non-existent due to strict gun regulations. By that measure, based on our socioeconomic success, the US should be seeing 0.79 deaths per 100,000 people. That's almost 5 times less than the actual rate of what we're seeing, which is 3.85 deaths per 100,000 people.
There is no one solution to end the epidemic of gun violence, but it's extremely apparent now more than ever that we demand a culture of responsible gun ownership. We cannot move forward with making McHenry County a gun sanctuary. It's illogical to provide a place of refuge and protection of an inanimate object.
You could summarize your comments,
An
please.
assault rifle, a weapon of mass destruction, above the lives of ourselves, our children, and our community. This room and our community is more vigilant than ever. We will remember your votes, and we are counting on you to make the right decision. Thank you, everyone, for your time.
Patty Hand, followed by Dan Ziller.
I give my allotted time to Julie Jens.
What, Julie coming up. Jensen?
Jensen, yeah. Good evening. My name is Julie Jensen. I'm a resident and parent in McHenry County, as well as an active volunteer with the local group of Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America. I stand before you first and foremost in honor and respect of gun violence survivors. Moms Demand defines survivors as those who are here today without their loved ones, who lost their lives to gun violence, who witnessed gun violence, who have survived gun violence. I'm also, first and foremost, in front of you in honor of those who lost their lives too short to gun violence. Tonight, I'm here, in addition, so many things to stand for, in support of Bill HB 5471 and in opposition to public comments previously made in which McHenry County residents have expressed interest for the board to pass a resolution that would make our county a gun sanctuary. Our organization, Moms Demand Action, is 10 million strong. We consist of mothers, fathers, survivors, people that aren't parents, Republicans, Democrats, independents, gun owners, and non-gun owners. Our purpose is to fight for public safety measures to protect others from gun violence. To sit back and allow others to voice their in-favor reasons for a gun sanctuary would go against what I personally, as well as the organization, believes in. The laws that are in place, such as HB 5471, are for overall safety of our state, for our county residents, for adults, for children, for you. Gun violence is a complex issue and requires multiple layers of solutions. At this time, I wanted to share facts that have been researched through every town for gun safety in America. As we know, guns are around and will be for the foreseeable future. The facts pertain to gun violence, which truly calls the need for more gun safety measures to be taken. In chatting with people in my own life, even here in the county, both who own guns and don't, this information was shocking to them. Firearms are the leading cause of death for children and teens. Gun homicides went up 33% from 2019 to 2020. 110 people are killed every day in America by guns. More than 200 are shot and wounded. 1,500 people die a year in Illinois alone by guns. The rate of gun deaths has increased 64% from 2011 to 2020 in Illinois, compared to a 33% increase nationwide. This means that in 2020, there were 631 more gun deaths than in 2011. In Illinois, the rate of gun suicide increased 16% and gun homicide increased 99% from 2011 to 2020, compared to a 12% increase and 70% increase nationwide, respectively. Approximately 3 million children witness gun violence each year. Gun violence costs $18.6 billion each year, of which $625.5 million is paid by taxpayers. And 4.6 million homes have unsecured guns, and in those 4.6 million homes specifically have children. I cannot sit by and keep this information to myself when I hear that there is interest in the county I am living and raising my family in to become a gun sanctuary. Gun violence is truly an epidemic in our country, and I want to make sure that our county has laws and resources in place to ensure training opportunities for gun owners, proper background checks, the ability to provide locks for secure storage, and a proper registration process for weapons, specifically assault. How many more people need to die? We are fortunate to have preventable measures in place for assault weapons, registration, along with other specifications in the bill. Thoughts and prayers can only go so far. It is time to take action. Is McHenry County the next headline for violence? Thank you.
Thank you. According to county board rules, we allow 30 minutes for public comments. If the board is so inclined, I'll entertain a motion to extend another 30 minutes. Mr. Kearns, seconded by Ms. Wegner. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against? Ayes have it. Mr. Ziller, followed by C. Becker.
Dan Ziller, Huntley, Illinois. As Dan Ziller, I would like to thank Sheriff Tatelman for the stance you took. Appreciate that. But I'm here for another Springfield mess. And that is House Bill 4412, and I'm here tonight to speak as the Farm Bureau President of McHenry County. The Illinois Farm Bureau, for anybody who doesn't know, that bill is the wind and solar farm sightings bill that's taking the power away from the counties to decide how these are built and the rules they need to follow to do it. Illinois Farm Bureau had people testifying in opposition to this bill in front of the Senate and House executive committees to express our concerns and problems that we had with this bill, and everything went unanswered. Obviously, we here in McHenry County Farm Bureau oppose this bill also and everything that it contains. It circumvents the AMA agreement, which is the Agricultural Impact Mitigation Agreement, which protects a lot of our property rights, protects our roads, our drainage systems. That's all been thrown out the window. It's been circumvented. It's taking our ability to require a drainage plan on those properties away from us, which we drastically need in this county, and also has circumvented the power of our drainage districts, which those are the people who make sure that things work in those areas, that the drainage works in those areas. They gotta have a say in the matter. The worst thing of this is the decommissioning part of the bill that it's just a mess. It's gonna leave when the project is decommissioned or they walk away from it. Now that's our responsibility as a county to clean that mess up. And there's a whole lot of us in this room that worked very hard to put an agreement together with Duke Energy for that solar farm that's gonna go out on Riley Township. And my greatest fear right now is that 120 days after Mr. Pritzker signs that bill, that agreement is gonna be null and void, and we'll never have another one going forward. So I wanna tell you that DeKalb County has put a resolution together, and they will be voting on that tomorrow night to pass in opposition to this bill. And I would hope that our county will start going down the same path. And also, Farm Bureau is there to help with anything you might need help with, so reach out to us if you desire. Thank you.
C. Becker, followed by Alex Tomlinson, or I'm sorry, not check to speak. I'm assuming, Alex, you don't want to speak.
Yes.
Rick Carlstedt following.
Thank you so much for this time. I've been a McHenry County homeowner, resident, taxpayer, 17 years now, and I have never, ever been here before. It's just lovely to see all your faces. I've been busy raising my family in the city of McHenry, home of Second Amendment store, which I'm sure you all know of. It's been on our county community college radio. The ads just this past summer are probably because of the record sales from 20 and 21 dropping. So unfortunately, we have had record sales. The Second Amendment store on Route 20 is about half a mile from our high schools in the city of McHenry. There are 2,200 students about, and they all have access in their senior years at 18 years old to whatever's available, less than a half a mile away. I worry every single day for my junior. I look at the students and I think never. I can never see any of them do such a heinous act. But then I look at what happened in Michigan, and I never could have seen that coming either. They didn't see it coming. Nobody saw it coming.
Second Amendment has had record sales, and I am hoping that this new law changes that. They need to pull it back. They were a small town, quaint hometown gun shop before this. 17 years we've had since the national weapons ban was lifted. 17 years. And it's shooting after shooting after shooting. And I'm telling you, the city of McHenry is prime. They are totally setting the stage for it. And I'm hoping my son is out of here before it happens. So thank you very much for your time. That is not all I wanted to say. Donnelly's Wild Wild West Town is an amusement park for a reason. Thank you.
Rick Carlstedt, followed by Judy Barron.
Good evening, I'm Rick Carlstedt. I've been a citizen of this county for 50 years. I was a teacher and a school principal in this county for 36 years. I had John as a student. I can tell you, I'm a gun owner. I consider myself a sportsman. I do not consider myself a gun enthusiast. In my years in teaching, I always taught my students, when I taught the Constitution, that the legislature passes the laws. The executive branch executes those laws, and the judicial department takes care of constitutionality. It's not a county government job. The statistic that I only want to leave you with is that the #1 cause of death for students today, and the benchmark was just last year, is gun violence. Please, for the safety of all of us, stop this violence. Thank you.
Judy Barron, followed by Tim Beck.
Hello, my name is Judy Barron. I'm a resident of McHenry with my family. Lived here for 7.5 years. My roots go deeper than that. My great-grandparents lived here. First, I wish I could pose the question and actually get an answer from somebody as to how everybody gets to decide what's constitutional and what isn't. I thought we had to go and talk to our representatives, have it argued among themselves to decide not at this level, but at the state level. I didn't understand that employees in this county could decide which laws were constitutional and which ones they would like to enforce and would like to ignore. I have another question as to why we need to have assault-style weapons to begin with. They are not for safety. They are not for protection. They are for killing as many people in as horrible a way as you can in as short a period of time as you can. I was in Highland Park. My daughter was, my husband was. We were right there, right where it happened. Just God's grace kept us from being injured, but we were there with others that were and whose family members lost lives. The carnage is unbelievable. If you want security, if you want to protect yourselves, yes, have a FOID card. Have your guns legally. You don't need assault-style, military-grade weapons that have not been legal in this country forever. They've only recently, relatively recently, the last 20 years or so, become legal. The only purpose for these guns is basically to hunt people and rip them apart. If you need them for protection, maybe you're that lousy of a shot to begin with, that you can't have just something that has a magazine with 10 bullets in it. That's not enough. I don't know what you're expecting. We are not having any great civil wars here. I think we're...
Yes, all the people who want legal guns are going to be going and having a war. That's kind of missing the point. No, we want safety, we want civility, we want to live in safety. I'd like to attend a parade and not feel like I need to worry about who's on the roof or who's around the corner and start shooting people. Leave a child, one with no parents, another one who's crippled for the rest of his life, the people that lost their lives just in Highland Park, the ones who were injured, the ones who
Summarize
lost.
your comments, please.
We can't go on with that. We need to uphold the Constitution. It came in place for a reason, and I would ask you would consider all of that. Thank you.
Tim Beck, followed by Brian Myers.
My name's Tim Beck. I live in McHenry. I also am going to go off script here a little bit based on some of the comments that have been made so far. First of all, I start with my sincere appreciation for some of the pain that some of the people have endured. Okay. The other thing is I made a comment that I was here a month ago. I submitted comments to the board. I think those comments are still available for your review. I do want to emphasize a couple points. I wasn't going to repeat them here, but the first one being we need to get back to the root cause of the issue. And so what I'm going to talk about tonight is what I'm going to push back as far as language manipulation. And what I'm talking about there is how people are going to be using words to advance their agenda. And so the first term I want to address here is the term called an assault weapon. So the first thing is assault in that context is an adjective. Let me be clear. The weapon does not assault anyone. And an assault is committed by an evil person. So an AR-15 is a weapon. It's just like a knife that was used to murder 4 students in Idaho recently, like an SUV that was run through a crowd. Okay? So the other point I want to make gets back to what I said before, that evil people do not care about laws that have been passed by Springfield. So yes, AR-15s are lethal, and so are single-shot Derringers, and any other type of firearm that law-abiding citizens have a right to possess to protect their own life and the life of their family. So to switch the narrative, to put the emphasis on an adjective, is simply to misdirect the debate away from the issue at hand. So language manipulation is simply a method used by those who advance an agenda that Americans are going to continue to oppose. And there is no doubt that in any American's mind on what that agenda is, it's to violate the U.S. Constitution. So that's a long-standing objective of people who probably
If you
have
could
never...
Summarize your comments, please.
Okay. I'll jump to the last paragraph then, sorry. So on behalf of the, well, what I'd like to close with is we're going to ask you, well, I wanted to get into the term about sanctuaries. But I'll skip over that part and just say that I would like to ask the board to protect law-abiding citizens who will not surrender our rights under our Constitution.
Brian Myers, followed by Sharon Fetz.
Hi, my name is Brian Myers. I currently reside in the Ridgefield area,
And I'm a retired teacher, 31 years full-time here in Illinois and in my birth state of Indiana. For many years, I was also a high school soccer coach, 15 years total with men's teams and 9 total with women's teams. Also, it's appropriate to note that for a year I was in charge of security for a large Chicago high school, Steinmetz, with an enrollment at that time of about 3,000 kids. That was also the year that Columbine occurred. I had to supervise de-escalation and disarming of kids who brought loaded guns in their backpacks to class. I am not anti-gun. I've been in a committed relationship for almost 4 years with a woman who is a retired police officer, and have had a lot of conversations with her about gun safety and about protecting the rights of gun owners while at the same time protecting public safety. And she carries legally. She was trained in her years as a police officer, but agrees with me that that there is no need for weapons of war that can liquefy tissue, or, as we saw in Uvalde, Texas, can decapitate children, that those have no business being in absolutely every private hand. There are a lot of kinds of guns that you can own. You don't, why do you have to have that particular type of gun? And I believe that these military-style weapons endanger police officers, they endanger public officials, they endanger kids in school, they endanger the teachers and other adults who work with kids in schools. They endanger innocent people that try to go to the 4th of July parade. In closing, what I'd like to say is that what I've always been haunted by as an educator is that every time that there is a mass shooting, whether it's Columbine or Newtown or Winnetka, if anybody remembers Laurie Dan walking into an elementary
Summarize your comments, please.
that teachers and other school personnel throw themselves in front of bullets to save their students. And in the case of Highland Park, parents threw their bodies over a toddler to save the toddler's life, and in so doing, also made him an orphan. And I think that we need to prioritize providing a sanctuary for the safety of our fellow citizens and not for inanimate objects whose purpose is to kill.
Sharon Fetz, followed by T. Shaw. Sure.
It's Sharon Fetting. That's my handwriting, sorry.
Sorry.
My name is Sharon Fetting. I live in Algonquin in McHenry County. I'm here, I just was writing stuff as I was sitting here. I didn't really come with a speech, but I'd just like to recognize the elected officials who recognize and abide by our U.S. Constitution. I am for McHenry County to be a sanctuary county. All gun laws do is make it harder for law-abiding citizens to own guns for protection in their own homes. Remember, criminals do not follow the law. That is why they are criminals. 30 years ago, my father actually fought in Des Plaines because they were trying to pass some gun laws, and I had my brother text it to me. It was called Des Plaines Citizens' Rights Committee. They won against, I forgot, it was something about guns, but my father's been a lifelong hunter all his life, and they did block whatever they were trying to pass to regulate more gun laws in Des Plaines.
I didn't realize how that important that was over 30 years ago, and now I get it. I'm also a mom of twin boys who are 17 and a 20-year-old daughter, and I want them to have the right to own a gun, period. And for you to try to infringe on that makes me infuriated.
No one's taking your
So,
guns, lady.
relax. I was quiet.
Okay, and this is your opportunity to address the board, not the crowd, so I would appreciate it if you would do that. Ma'am, could you please be orderly, or you will be asked to depart.
So anyways, like I said, criminals are the ones, hold on a second, let me see. I find it amusing that a man down in Springfield who has 24-hour protection for his immediate family and his mansion to tell us that we cannot protect ourselves. It is very important for us to keep our Second Amendment, and I hope that we do vote to be a sanctuary county. That's about it. Thank you.
Thank you. T. Shaw, followed by Marty Swanson.
It's Ted Hsu. And
Ted Hsu, I'm sorry.
thank you, Board. Good evening. The last time I was here, I read a portion of the Declaration of Independence. I wanted to make the point that there comes a time when men, free men and women, must take a stand against tyranny. Is there anyone in this room who can deny that we live in a state of tyranny here in Illinois? Too hyperbolic? Consider this. When the state conspires to pass laws that strip away the constitutional rights of law-abiding citizens, and to pass these laws without honest citizen input, in the dead of night, isn't that tyranny? When they give these laws dishonest names like the Safety Act, for no other possible reason than to deceive the people. From the hypersexualization of sex ed in the public schools, which in any other context is grooming, to the lies of the Safety Act, to the immoral pay raises, to the seizures of our Second Amendment rights, how is our state government not tyrannical? Or as one board member said recently, I want to make sure that the focus is on safety, not specifically on people's rights. I would submit to you that without rights, safety is meaningless. Was it safe for our forefathers to sign the Declaration of Independence? Was it safety or even rights? Were safety or even rights considered when the legislature passed the so-called Safety Act? Lawlessness is skyrocketing, and they pass no cash bail. More than 2/3 of Illinois counties oppose these kinds of destructive acts. So what can we do? The last time I was here, I suggested the formation of a convention of counties, which of course is currently not allowed by the state constitution. So why not an amendment of our own, the Convention of Counties Amendment? If they can put forth amendments, why can't we? Imagine what the people of this state could finally do. Pass term limits, repeal unethical and illegal laws, get rid of tampons in boys' bathrooms, recall rogue politicians, require legal review and public input on all new legislation, get control of runaway spending and the looming pension crisis, and much, much more. It's becoming increasingly clear that in the state of Illinois, most of the people are not represented. So let's do something about it. Thank you.
Marty Swanson, followed by Edward Gogol.
My name is Marty Swanson. I'm a resident of Ringwood and a longtime McHenry County resident, also a retired teacher. First of all, nobody is doing away with the Second Amendment. You know, I mean, I'm hearing a lot of conversation like that out here, and that's not happening. Number two, I'm not anti-gun per se. My dad was a long-time president of the Illinois Rifle Association. He was a target shooter. He had national and state championships for rifle shooting. So I'm not anti-gun. I am anti-assault rifles and similar kinds of weapons
that belong in a war zone, not in a civilized society. I would urge us to follow the law. Hello, you all took a vow, an oath that said you were going to support the Constitution and the laws of the state of Illinois. We need to do that. Thank you.
Edward Gogol, followed by Abby Brosid?
Thank you, members of the board. My name is Edward Gogol. I live in Crystal Lake. I think I'd like to quote from the Heller decision, the 2008 Heller decision that is considered to uphold the rights for gun ownership. Quote, "The Second Amendment right is not unlimited. It is not a right to keep and carry any weapon whatsoever, in any matter whatsoever, and for whatever purpose." I think I'd like to quote from Republican Supreme Court Justice Warren Burger in 1991. Quote, "The gun lobby's interpretation of the Second Amendment is one of the greatest pieces of fraud, I repeat fraud, ever perpetrated on the American people by special interest groups like the NRA and gun manufacturers that I have ever seen in my lifetime. The real purpose of the Second Amendment was to ensure that these armies of the state, the well-regulated militia, would be maintained for the defense of the state. The very language of the Second Amendment refutes any argument that it was ever intended to guarantee every citizen an unfettered right to any weapon of war he or she desires." I love people more than I love guns. I think they're hateful things. I own one for protection myself, but they're hateful things. It's not a good thing. It's not a good thing that we march in our 4th of July parades hoping that it's not going to happen here when it can happen in a flash. I urge you to vote against the gun sanctuary resolution. Thank you.
Abby Brosio?
Good evening. My name is Abby Brosio, and I am a middle school science teacher in McHenry County, a mother, and have recently been given the title of mass shooting survivor. I'm here today to recount the most horrific day of my entire life and to give you a glimpse into the new reality that I face every day. I'm actually going to start with an experience that happened to me 10 years ago. In my second year of teaching, a gunman walked into Sandy Hook Elementary School and stole the lives of 26 people, 20 of which were just 6- and 7-year-olds. This not only rocked our country, but truly rocked the world of educators forever. Shortly after this tragedy occurred, our school practiced a lockdown drill. Only myself and a few other teachers in the school were unaware that this was a drill due to a poorly worded email. That lockdown was very real and very traumatizing to me, as well as to my students. I, as their teacher, am their first line of defense against something like this. And this was before there were regulations for us to have our doors locked throughout the entire school day. So in order to protect my own students from potential gunfire, my classroom being one of the first classrooms in the front of the school, I had to exit my room. I wanted to ensure that it was locked, so I locked the door first, made sure it was locked, unlocked the door, relocked the door and closed it to ensure that my students were safe. Students were crying and praying in the back of my classroom. I was unable to teach the rest of the day. This has made lockdown drills ever since then very real and very serious for me. This school year, lockdown drills are not just very real and very serious for me, I'm actually unable to participate in them without having a serious panic attack. Lesson learned. That is because this summer my family became survivors of the mass shooting at the 4th of July parade in Highland Park. Mind you, this is a day that celebrates our freedom, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, which was taken from my family that day. My biggest fear, which I heard some of you talking about, was being mauled over by a car during this parade. Mere seconds after that thought, I heard what I thought were fireworks behind me. My family was not just at the parade. We were directly below where the shooter took aim from a business next door to the store my husband manages. We were not just directly below the shooter. I looked up at the shooter crouched behind his weapon as it was aimed at my family. Not only did I see the face of pure evil that day, I was grazed by a bullet in my side while clutching my 1-year-old daughter in my arms to protect her from the gunfire.
But by far, the part about that day that I will never, ever get over was that in the mere seconds that I had to respond to the gunfire and get to safety, I was unable to look for my 3-year-old son because I had to protect my 1-year-old daughter in my arms and get her to safety. I had to know that my mother-in-law had my son safe, which she did, as seen in the video surveillance footage from my
summarize your
husband's
comments, please.
store, as my mother-in-law crawled over him and shielded his body from a barrage of bullets raining down on us. I have a unique perspective on this issue. In fact, I hope it remains unique to me. Dealing with the aftermath of what happened to my family is incredibly lonely, and no one can truly empathize with the things that I have been through. Standing in front of a classroom shortly after this happened caused panic attacks almost every single day. Hearing my students anticipate what might happen to them on a lockdown is terrifying to me. I feel that this is going to be a very real experience for many people in this room, and I think it's a very small sacrifice that we could make to protect our children. Thank you.
Okay, Maria Peterson is the last I have checked to speak. Did you forget to check it, Bruce? Okay, you'll be last.
Good evening and thank you. I'm Maria Peterson. I am a Moms Demand Action active volunteer, as well as the most recent candidate for State Senate District 26. When I was walking the district, which encompasses 4 counties, gun owners, left and right, were telling me that they had no objection to having stronger background checks, longer wait times, raising the age limits, locking up their guns, keeping them safe, that they had nothing to hide, and those who have nothing to hide can keep their guns. But we know that crime in the heat of passion happens. We know that emotions with young adults, such as the young man in Highland Park, get out of hand and are not handled. We know that families are partly responsible for these gun violence occurrences, such as the young man in Highland Park. We were in the parade in Barrington at the time that Highland Park was starting, and we were wondering why the parade was moving so quickly. And it turns out that the Barrington police was getting called to come to Highland Park to help. A few days later, I did a police ride-along with Barrington, and the officers there were telling me what was happening, what had happened in Highland Park. And now, with regard to taxpayer dollars, of course there's loss of life, but now with taxpayer dollars, they're considering having to purchase drones and doing drone lookouts before any type of public meetings because they have to ensure the safety of our residents. But if we are going to keep a sanctuary county, you're only defeating the purpose of why we're trying to help or save taxpayer dollars. Because on the one hand, you're saying you're going to keep a sanctuary county, and then on the other hand, you're saying you're going to save tax dollars, but really the two don't work hand in hand. We have to abide by the laws. You elect your representatives. This is not a situation where Governor Pritzker does it all by himself. There were hundreds of Moms Demand Action and other activists 12 days ago in Springfield, including myself and a number of women here, men and women here. This is not done in a bubble. The governor doesn't sign this all by himself. This is done by representatives, state senators, state representatives, and people like you. So if you're not happy, don't do a sanctuary city. Talk to your representative. Talk to your senator, because those are the people who then work with each other down in Springfield. Let's get civics right and not point the fingers just at one person. Let's work it so that everybody works together. And I ask that McHenry County, while I am not a McHenry County resident, I ask that you do not make yourselves a sanctuary city, or a county, excuse me, because that's just not abiding by the law. Thank you.
Okay. Bruce Johnson.
Thank you, Mike. Welcome, or good evening, board. My name is Bruce Johnson. I'm a resident of Cary, Illinois. I've been a resident of McHenry County for well over 30 years. I'm here again tonight to show support for this board to adopt the Second Amendment Sanctuary County Resolution. We have close to 1,000 signatures to date supporting this resolution. Over the past month, we've all seen the video of board member Kelly Wagner's speech stating that safety comes before our rights. Kelly, I'm here to say that safety comes because of our rights. Many parents at the recent law and government meeting held on January 3rd at which you spoke displayed outrage at how unsafe our children are at our public schools. I have grandchildren in these schools. I too have a concern. Our children are being assaulted on many fronts, however, not from legal registered gun owners who may own AR-type weapons. The school lockdown drills that our children endure are not right, and I believe that there are other safety measures that need to be considered. I can remember in my generation having to go under the desk during the nuclear threat war, time of life during the Cold War, and it wasn't pleasant, but we lived through it. When you step back to take a look at the bigger picture, there is a worldwide agenda that is attempting to burn down America from the inside out. It's called Agenda 2030. Right now, our governor, J.B. Pritzker, is in Davos, speaking to the World Economic Forum to promote his achievements here in Illinois. I'm sure he's bragging on how he's attempting to strip our Second Amendment rights. If we allow for the world's elite to compromise our basic rights that are clearly spelled out in both our U.S. and Illinois Constitution, then we begin to submit to their agenda. If you, Kelly, or anyone else in our county board chooses not to stand behind our constitutional rights and not support our own sheriff's declaration choosing not to enforce HB 5471, then you are in violation of your oath. There's talk that some of the current county board members are concerned about their next election being jeopardized if they vote yes to the resolution. We will be paying close attention as to how these votes will be cast. I know for certain that those who vote no will be at risk in losing the next election because of their vote. We all want safety for our children and our communities, but we demand that our constitutional rights remain in place. Thank you.
Okay, that concludes public comments. We'll move on to new and unfinished business. I'll entertain a motion to approve item 13A, appointment of Regional Planning Commission Chair effective immediately. Mr. Sager, seconded by Mr. Kearns. Any discussion?
Would you be willing to accept 13A, B, and C done in one motion, please?
It's extremely difficult for them to set that up and take more time to do that than just vote on these quickly. Okay, so
Just brief comment. I just
Okay.
noticed on the resolution, it looks like the very first sentence says, was appointed by the county board by resolution on February 15th, 2023. I assume that's some sort of scrivener's error.
Scrivener's error, we can
is it supposed to be
fix after the
2022?
fact. Would you amend it to today's date?
What's it?
Make a motion to amend it to today's date?
Yeah. Yeah.
Second to that motion? Do we need a separate motion? Okay, for Scrivener's error, we won't need that motion. So
Okay,
if
okay.
that's not the only discussion, clerk, open the voting, please. Voting is open. Have all voted who wish? Okay, motion carries. I'll entertain a motion to approve 13B, resolution authorizing an agreement with Fort Orange Press for the purpose of printing equipment. Mr. Scala, seconded by Mr. Gottemoller. Any discussion? Seeing none, could you open the voting, please? Have all voted who wish? Motion carries. I'll entertain a motion to approve item 13C, resolution authorizing an emergency appropriation of the coroner's fiscal year 2023. Mr. Scala, seconded by Ms. Greeno. Any discussion? Seeing none, clerk, could you open the voting, please? Voting is open. Have all voted who wish? Motion carries. Moving on to appointments, I'll entertain a motion to approve the recommendations for appointments to the Marengo Rescue Squad and Historic Preservation Commission. Mr. Gottemoller, seconded by Ms. Campbell. Any discussion? Seeing none, clerk, could you open the voting, please? Voting is open. Have all voted who wish? Motion carries. Do any committee chairs or liaisons have reports for us tonight? Ms. Campbell?
I'll just make it quick. The 2050 Regional Planning Commission held a workshop on Thursday in conjunction with the environmental defenders of McHenry County. They really did a great job in getting the word out. We had a great turnout that evening and a lot of great input. We must have had like 6 tables of 4 or 5 each. And so I wanted a shout out to McHenry County environmental defenders for their efforts. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Campbell. Seeing no others. Do any members have items they'd like removed from the routine consent agenda? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion. Mr. Scala, seconded by Mr. Gottemoller. Clerk, could you open the voting, please? Voting is open. Have all voted who wish? Motion carries. We have one ordinance for review only. Pete, do you have a report for us tonight? No report from Mr. Austin. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Mr. Scala, seconded by Mr. Shorten. All in favor say aye. Aye. Against? Have a good night.